Hello, me.
Triangle strategy is not what I expected. It's more story-driven, and I'm totally hooked. Hello there, people of the internet, I'm Curse Blake, and today I'm going to be going through my first impressions of Triangle strategy and posing the question whether you should play this today.
Have you bandits no shame? Attacking two innocent women?
I didn't know what to think when I jumped into Triangle strategy, but I was instantly blown away by how in-depth the story was, and how it hooked me almost immediately.
The honor and pleasure is mine, Lady Frederica. Pray forgive me for not introducing myself sooner.
This game caught me off guard because of how story-rich it is. I've played some similar tactical RPGs, so I was kind of expecting a more combat-focused game, kind of similar to Fire Emblem. But that's not what we've got here, and I think it's actually way better for it. The story of this game is immersive, and I was pretty much hooked straight away. Of the first 5 to 10 hours that I've played, I feel like it's almost 80% story. And I really appreciate that because I've always been a huge fan of story-driven games. But this game feels different. The story feels immersive, it feels like you're there, and it feels like you just want to keep playing to know what happens. I'm not going to go too far deep into the lore of the story right at this moment because I don't really want to spoil it for anyone who is potentially thinking of picking up this game. All I can say is it's awesome. You can play this in some easier options and basically just play it as a story game, I think. And I think that that is really appealing to some people. Not me personally because I love strategy games, but it's a really nice option to have. I feel like this game goes into way more detail than most games that I play. I think I know a lot more about the factions and the characters than I have done in a game for a really long time. And I think that that is a really awesome thing to have because it feels like the choices you have to make in this game have real weight. And I think that knowing all this extra information really does help. The story is definitely at the forefront of this game, and that's not a bad thing. The combat in this is fun, but the story is where it's at for this game. The writing in this is utterly fantastic. There's a huge cast of voice actors here, and they all sound pretty good.
There is no need for such formalities, my girl.
There is a couple occasional weird voices here and there, but I think it's been pretty good in the little bit that I've played. I'm glad they decided to voice the majority of the dialogue in this game, as it really makes it feel so much better. It really feels like you're there and the characters are talking to you, and I think that it's always a better decision to use voice actors rather than just have text rolling on a screen. It just feels more immersive, and I think that more games should take that on board. There is a couple of occasions where there isn't a ton of voice acting, like where you just run around and there's just text, but it doesn't seem to break the flow too much. I think that it's a really nice balance.
Trigan, are you quite all right?
There's a heavy character focus in this game, whether you go through a lot of the backstory of the characters, their interactions with each other, and I think that's really good. I feel like this game is almost a story game with combat tacked on the end. And that's not saying that the combat is bad. The combat is actually really fun, and I felt challenged in pretty much every encounter that I've had so far. Even the first tutorial combat, I honestly thought I was gonna lose.
Damn it all! This can't be!
Whether that's me just being crap at games, or this game is just perfect at the normal difficulty, which is something I really like. I hate having to ratchet up something to the hardest difficulty for it to just be challenging. If I ratchet it up to hard or very hard, I want it to be punishingly cruel. This game feels like that is the case. The combat is not as simple as I first expected it to be, and as I've played more and more, the game has become more complex. So the combat is classic turn-based tactical RPGs. You have a warband of unique units with tactically diverse abilities. It feels like every unit has a unique tactical advantage and disadvantage. I love this style of game, so I am really happy playing this, and there's a lot of really nice features here. I really like that you have to position your troops in certain ways to get certain bonus stacking attacks and things like that, and that really makes it very enjoyable to play. It's not just hit unit, move unit. There are a lot of environmental things you can do, like difference in height gives you better attack, and sometimes there's other environmental factors that you can use against the enemy. I won't spoil anything just yet, I'll leave that for the big review. So this video is just a first impressions. Later on I'm going to do a big review and probably a final thoughts, so if you want to check those out, remember to subscribe to the channel and like this video because it makes me happy. As you go through the game, your characters level up and get way more powerful. You can also upgrade your units, give them new weapons, upgrade their skills and things like that. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and I think the combat is really immersive and really complex, and it's just enjoyable. I find myself just losing myself every time I play this game. It feels like a tiny game, but it is complex, and I feel like there's so many hours of fun here.
But what of you, my kin-to-be? How do you see our grand cooperative venture?
Apart from tactical combat and really rich story, the other main factor to this game is the choice-based system. So in this game, you get to make a lot of choices about what your character thinks and says to people. And this has an overall effect on how characters view you and how you deal with the factions.
It is the first step towards true harmony among our three nations. I welcome it.
I've always loved choice-based games. I remember when I first played Knights of the Old Republic and I could choose to be a Sith or a Jedi. That just opened my eyes to how games should be made going forward. Every game should have some sort of choice mechanic where you get to do what you want and there's repercussions for it.
The scales of conviction will illuminate the path we've chosen.
So the scales of conviction are the way that you make the main decisions in the game. The way that this is done is you try and convince the other party members to go along with the decision that you want to make. In the ones that I've done so far, it's been a stalemate. You only have to convince one person to go the way that you want. However, it's always better to try and convince more, and in the ones that I've done, I've tried to convince everyone. You don't actually make the decision here. You try and convince others to make the decision for you. And I really like this because it's a little bit of a twist on the mechanic, and I think it's a really great way to go because it makes it feel like you're less in control and you're more of a total unit making a decision. There's a lot of dialogue in this game, and you get to pick a lot of options to what you say to people. It's basically a multiple choice pick option, but I found myself taking ages to make the decision on what to say because I felt like it had a lot of impact on the story. There's always something interesting in each multiple choice option, and sometimes I was confused on what I should really say. The one thing I find really good about this is it doesn't tell you what repercussions do happen. As I found with some other choice-based games, they tell you something bad is going to happen, or they tell you something good is going to happen. This one just tells you that it strengthened your convictions. And I really like that you don't know what's happening, because then you don't really get the sort of prompts from the game to tell you what to say. And I really like that because then you get to make a completely unbiased decision. This mechanic is actually really enjoyable for me, and I think it adds a lot of replayability because there are some huge decisions that you need to make, and I really want to see what the other ones were that I've already taken. Triangle Strategy has an aesthetic that I really like. It has a pixel art graphic style with 2D and 3D elements going on at the same time. If you guys have seen any of my other reviews, you'll know that I absolutely love aesthetics and pixel art especially. Pixel art is what actually drew me to this game in the first place. I didn't really know much about the game before buying it, so I kind of just thought, hey cool, pixel art graphics, tactical RPG, that'll be awesome, and then I was hit with this really awesome story and kind of blown away. It kind of feels reminiscent of some of the 3DS games that I used to play back in the day, and that's a really good thing because I love the 3DS and I love a lot of titles on that console. And it kind of emotes a little bit of nostalgia in me.
A lord must be worldly as well as wise. I trust you will conduct yourself as befits the lord of a high house.
All environments, maps, and combat zones have looked absolutely stunning, and I think that there's been a lot of effort put in here, and you can really see that someone has loved making this game. The other thing that I try and consider when it comes to aesthetics of games is the soundtrack. I really like the soundtrack for this game. I really like the fantasy, high fantasy vibe. It just sets the mood perfectly, that's all. I'm not saying that you should buy the game just for the soundtrack, it's not that good, but it is pretty good at setting the mood.
With each nation controlling one vital resource, conflict between these three powers was all too common.
So I guess the real question is, should you play this game? Yes. The answer is just yes. I know a lot of these games that I do, should you play this game, is yes, but this one is more yes than I probably have had in a long time. I think this game is absolutely fantastic, and it's probably my favorite game of this year so far. And that's saying something because I absolutely adore Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was the game I reviewed last. I feel like I'm going to sink tons of hours into this game and probably replay it with different consequences to see what happens. There's already been a really big decision that I've made to start off with, and I kind of wanted to see what would have happened if I'd done it the other way around. So I feel like there's a ton of replayability here, and the game mechanics, the story, everything is just awesome. So I think that if you like story-heavy games, or even if you just like RPGs that have a bit of story, this game is awesome. This game could be for you. The combat is very satisfying, but if you don't want to have a really combat-heavy game, you can just turn it off. So I think that if you just want that story-heavy experience, you can. If you don't, and you want really hardcore combat, you can ratchet up the difficulty, and it can be a really punishing experience. I think that I can't recommend this game enough, so I think that you guys need to do yourself a favor, pick up this game today, and lose yourself in it. Anyways, I've been Curse Blake, and thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up, and subscribe if you want to see more of me doing silly stuff. Check out some of my other videos around here somewhere. I'll catch you in the next video, whether that's gameplay, reviews, or something else. Anyways, catch you later. Bye-bye.